Hey, how's it going? This is a relatively quick and an easy module, all about sort of how we talk to ourselves. Because the key thing is that we're always listening, and it's so easy to get caught up in negative language and using negative dialogue, and ultimately it affects you, it affects how you are. So in this module, we're going to talk about why we need to start using positive language. It is an effort, like I said. It's human nature for us to sort of focus on the negatives, as we've covered in some of the other modules, and unless you kind of stop yourself doing that and really focus on being a bit more positive, then you will always focus on the negatives. And the reason why it's important is that we're always listening to ourselves, and these negative vibes really do have an impact on how you are, how you're feeling, how the people feeling around you. And we've all got those people, haven't we, that when the phone rings and you see a certain name and you're just like, oh my god, I really don't want to answer this. And it's because that's the effect that some people have, and some events have, and to be honest, you may have that effect on people if you're constantly negative and you're dragging people down. Energy it's a funny thing, and it can be transferred, but it will always try and even itself out. So if you have two batteries and one is full and one is empty, and you connect them, that it will try and equal itself out. So the negative one will sort of draw all the energy from the good one. Now, this isn't about building up your energy sources so that you can look after other people and charge other people. This is about yourself. So in this little module, we're going to go from doom and gloom, feeling like life is always going to be crap, to being a ray of sunshine, okay? To be an absolute ray of light where people love to be around you, but you love to be around yourself, because you can't shake yourself off, can you? You can't get rid of yourself. Or just can't be arsed with Craig today. I'm going to stay away from him. You're always there. So, you want to be a good person to be around. Instead of seeing the bad, ultimately what we want to do is learn to always see the good. And there's always some good. At any one time, there's over 2 million bits of information that our body is receiving. Some of it's got to be good. But, we often discount that and focus on the negatives that are often overwhelming. It's there. We've just got to learn to look for it. Instead of dwelling on what's going bad, like you wake up in like this little scratch on my nose. I got this new microphone stand, and it's brilliant. It's really handy. And I got up to go to the toilet, smacked myself in the face with a microphone, and cut my nose. And my nose was bleeding. And I could have just sort of bloody, which I would have done in the past probably, smashed up the bloody microphone arm, absolutely trashed the bloody microphone, and then, ultimately, what have you achieved? Like, momentarily, you might have felt better because, you took your revenge on the microphone, but ultimately, your microphone's knackered, your arm's knackered, and, you've still got a bloody bit of blood on your nose. So, it's very much about that. And then instead of focusing on what's going wrong, it's celebrating the wins. There will be some win. Every day, you will be winning in some way. And even if it's just doing a little bit more consistent, or making a better food choice, or being positive, when everyone else is being negative, and challenging yourself and challenging other people to use positive language, okay? Instead of focusing on what you're lacking, what we haven't got, or what we are not, we might not have a great image yet, or we might want a better job, better life, better house, whatever, but we kind of focus on the lack, all right? And we want to now switch it so that we're focusing on what you're absolutely crushing, because some things you will be doing really well, So that's kind of what why is it important? Well, there's a lot of study and research going into something called epigenetics. I don't know, I'll get a video explaining it underneath this, which kind of explains that ultimately the every thought and everything we do has a frequency, and just like radiation, can have a negative effect on living matter. our negative thoughts can have a negative effect on our own cells, and they can start to turn our cells toxic and kill our cells off. And I know this is pretty deep, but like I said, I'll put some videos below this. So it's really important. And if you've spent some time at camp, you may have seen Paula do the rice experiment by a guy called Dr. Emoto, and he basically did a study on crystals and rice, where there are 2 jars that are clean, they're what do you call it, sterilized, and he puts boiled rice in there, same amount, same conditions and everything, and then all they do is they write hate on one jar and they write love on the other jar, and what Paula does with her group is every day her conquer foodies at camp will say nothing but hate, like horrible things to the hate jar, really, really nasty, horrible things, and just abuse it, and nothing but love and positivity to the love jar. And what happens, and we've seen it time and time again, is the hate jar very quickly becomes mouldy and starts to develop mould and goes rotten. But the love jar just lasts much, much longer. Now, you can debate that and question that all you want, but this is the start of this epigenetics that I'm talking about. What we say has an effect. It sends out a negative frequency. And even if it's just bringing the people around you down, or, causing you to miss a training session, or to have a dodgy meal because, you've made yourself feel negative, you put yourself in a negative state, we can avoid all that. Okay, so a couple of things. Like I said, this is going to be a quick one. In the way of sort of worksheets and all this kind of stuff, the only worksheet I've got really is this one that you've seen before, and it's a language audit, and what I want you to do is I want you to kind of really have a think about the things that you say to yourself and perhaps jot them down, okay? What are your kind of, how would you describe yourself, and is it positive and negative? How would you describe your day, your life, your job, your food, your eating, your training, all these things, and really start to become aware of negative language and challenge it. Okay, so I've got a little 4-step process really, which is ABCD. Okay, remember ABCD. Basically, A, awareness. Everything starts with awareness, just being aware of it and just catching yourself when you are negative and when you say negative things, and even just sort of going, bloody hell, I didn't realize how negative I was. Awareness really is the first part of it all. The B is be curious and grateful, because I know life gets on top of us sometimes, and sometimes we can't help sort of being in a bad mood or whatever, and sometimes it does genuinely feel like the world is plotting against you and all this, but or the fitness industry, food industry, whatever, it's got it in for you and making it really hard, and sometimes it feels that way, but it's not that way, and with a bit of practice you can start to be a little bit more curious about stuff, because whilst ever we're curious, we will find it really hard to be angry, frustrated, negative in effect. So be curious. And another thing, if you can be grateful for whatever you've got, whether it's just the lessons that these bad or these negative events and all that can teach you, just to be grateful or curious can put you in a very, in a positive state, or at least a state where you can't be negative. You cannot be grateful and angry. You can't be, oh God, I'm so grateful, I'm angry. You can't do it, it's just an impossible. So if you can just be curious about it, and all it is a step back, step back to have a look at it and think, right, what is actually going on here, or why, and what I'll tend to do as well is, if there's a situation emerging where there's lots of people being negative, just by sitting back and watching what's going on and just being curious about, what's the thinking behind the thinking. It's a really interesting question. When you look at someone doing something, and we take this up to camp all the time, because there is some stupid stuff goes on at camp, ridiculous stuff. But instead of getting annoyed and frustrated with it, it's a case of going, well, what is behind that? What is behind that behaviour? What is behind those thoughts? What's behind what they're really saying? And when you start to be a bit curious, you can't be angry and kind of negative with it. So that's that. The next thing, the C stands for catch yourself being good. And I've spoke about this before, with the with a couple of the modules, but we are brilliant at catching ourselves, our friends, our family, our kids at being bad. We're just brilliant at it. It's like just bred into us. But what I'm talking about here is like it's catching yourself being good, and you need to get really good at that, and really recognizing the wins. And they're there. They are there. You're watching this video right now. That is a win that should be recognized. You should give yourself a pat on the back when you've done 2 or 3 videos like this, because instead of following the masses and acting like a sheep like everybody else, you're doing something about it. And you don't have to be negative and sad and down your whole life. There will be times when you do feel a little bit shit, but you can control a lot of that. You can understand a lot of that, and you can be in a much better place than so many other people. Okay, and that's what this is about. So that's the C. And then the D is decide what you want to let in. Because, if you watch the news, pretty much all the news nowadays is negative. Decide who you listen to, decide who you sit next to, decide, what you allow people to say about you, and really, start to control what's going on around you. Right now, there's a little thing going on in the UK called Brexit, and if I'm honest, I ain't got a freaking clue about Brexit, and I've not got a clue about what's going on in the Houses of Parliament, other than there's a lot of fucking idiots arguing over what's going on and just making it hard for everybody, and the thing is, for me, I'm not reckless in the fact that I'm ignoring Brexit. It's just I'm not getting involved in it. When the time comes for me to do something, if they have a second referendum or what, then I'll sort of take action. But other than that, I'm not dwelling on Brexit. I skim over these hundreds of posts every day about people slagging off Brexit from their point of view. Well, I'm just concentrating on being happy. I'm just concentrating on coaching the people on this course and helping them be better. I'm not bothered about Brexit. Of course I'm bothered about it. But ultimately, I'll deal with it when the time comes. And it's the same with everything, I don't really want to watch soap operas. I don't watch soap operas because it's all negativity. It's just crap, And the same with, Paula likes to watch like these scandal crime dramas and all this kind of stuff. I'm not really that bothered about that because I don't want to be watching things about murder and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying I want my life to be all roses and butterflies and dancing through the flower bloody meadows and all this kind of stuff. But I'm just very choosy about what I accept in my brain. And you too, you should be too. So let's have a little bit of recap. A, awareness. Be aware. Awareness is the key to everything. Really self-aware. B is be curious or grateful. Ideally both, C, catch yourself being good and the other people around you. And D, decide what you let in. So 4 steps really, which is so easy to do. All right. Or easy to say. It can be tough to do. Like I said, I'm gonna add a couple of videos about the rice experiment, crystal experiment, some epigenetic stuff with Joe Dispenza and Graham Hancock. I think that's the guy who does a lot of epigenetic stuff. A couple of books that I recommend as well. But that's pretty much it for this little module. If you want something that you can actually use right now, the word but and yet is just incredibly powerful. I've spoke about it before. Don't. If you catch yourself making a negative statement like, oh yeah, I can't do that, add yet, because it's the first stage in being a bit more positive and suggesting to your own mind that you're going to sort it out, that things are going to be different in the future. Okay, so remember that. As always, any points, questions, any comments that you've got on this little module, then stick it in the Facebook group. But keep pressing on. You're doing really well, making great progress here. Okay, so keep it going, and I'll see you in the next module. Take care.